Being a new leader at the school, I thought it would be good for me to always, find opportunities, and this was one of those opportunities to develop my professional leadership and management of the school. So I'm always looking for another opportunity, and this was one of them. Wishing for years for a life coach, to be blessed that my business partner, Paul Sarak, was a life coach, was just really. So the universe had connected everything for me and made sure that I not only got an opportunity to gain business acumen, but also be exposed to a life coach. It wasn't easy because I'm now going to have to start talking about these personal and private things with a stranger. But Paul, who was our facilitator of our group, made such an easy connection when Paul and himself came into this office, and I could just, after a few minutes of introducing each other and just sharing, Paul Sarak himself had been on a governing body at the school. He taught also, and so he knew the complexities that we are exposed to within the school, and just that empathy and understanding from both Pauls that I worked with, and more Paul Sarak. That day there were tears. The tears were pent up frustration, anger, even aggression, because of just feeling overwhelmed. There are avenues of support. However, the time to connect on a one-on-one basis just never allowed you really the freedom to speak about anything and everything else. So you would stick to the technical things, the school, what's happening here, how to improve results. That was the focus all the time. But there wasn't care for the caregiver. So you're looking after everything else in the school, but who helps you to put things in place again? And so that's where Paul Sarak came in. It just helped me to prioritize, because a lot of time I wasn't looking after myself. It's a very lonely position to be in a principal's seat or the office. Hardly. I mean, no one really wants to come in here freely. So you don't have time also for the connections. And so I think that with all of what work that needed to be done at Cornflower, that's what made it a very emotional, taxing time for me. And so emotionally, I needed to let rip, and I let rip in the comfort of my office with and in the safety of Paul, the facilitator, and Paul Sarak, my coach. I think it lies within the fact that you actually get to the heart, and that the principal does have a heart. Who, like you said, people don't easily warm up to a principal. I came from outside, an outside WCD employer into Cornflower. So I wasn't here from its inception, and there are many staff here. And so for me it was really challenging, knowing the work that needed to be done and how I needed to zone in and achieve all of those results. I think in a way I created that lonely space for myself also, because I needed to protect myself. I needed to be, like you had said just now, that straight shooter. I needed to call a spade a spade. I needed to do what needed to be done. But somewhere along the line, I might have been responsible for creating that lonely space also, because of the professional distance I had to maintain. And it was a way for me to protect. But in doing so, I started closing off myself. And with PFP, yes, the wonderful workshops that we attended, it was all about connecting again, about getting together, finding yourself also, but finding others also within that relationship. And with Paul, working with Paul, knowing and having the opportunity, like now I can say, it might have been me also that created that lonely space. I did, just prior to joining up, and that's why I was Googling and looking around for a leadership opportunity, discovered for myself that I've been doing so much of the technical things or activities that I was involved in at the school to improve results and that, and I wasn't looking at the relationships. And so the loneliness was because my staff started pulling away again, because I was pushing forward and not always pulling them alongside me. So if one wants to progress, you cannot do anything on your lonesome. There's always that saying, being the sage on the stage. That stuff don't work. You cannot sit there and regeer from that chair. In Afrikaans sê hulle mos regeer. The change happens when you connect with your staff. The change for me happened, the understanding that I'm not alone. When we had conversations here, myself and Paul, strategizing how we're going to do things, but it actually only truly happened when I sat in my school management team meeting, discussing with them what we're going to be doing with the staff, asking them for their input, and from there we could actually make a change. So that lonely space or that lonely time, I do feel responsible for creating that for myself also, but there are other factors also. When you're in the presence of your superiors, I've got a very supportive circuit manager, Mrs. Akida Isaacs. I know I'm not alone, but she has 28 other schools that she must see to, with, like our school, for example, 1,500 children. So that complexity and the time that you're given once a term to have a circuit meeting, it's boom, boom, boom. These are the 5 points I must discuss with her very quickly, because there are 27 other principals behind me waiting in the queue to have a one-on-one with her. So the lonely place comes from many directions, or I'd say, times, but ultimately it's going to be me. It is me that created that lonely space also, to protect myself. From there, it took us a long time to find ourselves within the relationship, because then we needed to have a plan and everything. And when the structure came in for us was when we started attending the workshops, and the two of us then strategized how we were going to integrate the principles of what we had learnt into, I needed to revise the vision and mission of the school. And so very beautifully it served as an opportunity for us not only to revise the vision and mission also, but it allowed us an opportunity to work on how do we get the team together again, how for the SMT to work well together. How can we create the opportunity for the whole staff to have a platform, not a staff meeting, what we called it was a round table. So we would come and have discussions, but jy laat alles uit op my tafel, but you come with a solution. So we then, once we had that plan in place, we then moved with our partnership. But I think ultimately it was about us forming a relationship for my sounding board. Paul became our sounding board. So he'd ask certain questions. I don't know how he does it, but he's amazing like that. And once a month we'd also meet with our other principals and their partners. And that was so great. Because I'm not the only one having these problems when we sit in that circle. So we found ourselves, touch and go initially, not sure how this relationship or what plans. Was it big market days or fundraising days? It wasn't about that, about the money. What we got was much more worth, of more value, priceless, so to say, in that I got the support that I needed, but to the benefit of my entire staff. So we have such a healthier relationship now. My door is open. Like I said to you earlier, not only for the learners, the teachers pop in here regularly, then we close so that we can have a private conversation. Before, people would do a U-turn before coming in here. And so our channels of communication are open. We come together here to strategize regularly. We then go out with an idea of who to approach, how to approach it. And it's not my idea only. It's a collective. All of us did it together. I'd say before I was more of a technicist. So because of what I needed to do, I was more focused on getting the systems and structures in place at Cornflower. But I forgot about the human element. I forgot how to relate to others, how to connect with the staff. Not that I didn't know how, But I had assumed this role as principal, and I needed to just make things right. I couldn't do it on my own. So I'd say I'm more of a collaborative leader now, more of a kom ons sit saam and we solve this problem together, as opposed to what I did before, don't worry, I'll solve it. That's what I used to do. So these are the systemic results. It's low. This is my plan. And this is how we're going to implement it. And so after PFP, working together, connecting more, making more time for us as a school management team to meet, for us as a staff to meet. And so what have you got to say? Opening the floor to further discussions. Like I said, the round tables that we have, that really gives me a lot of insight. It's really my time to have my ear on the ground, and hearing what the concerns of the staff. And sometimes it's little things, but for them, in that classroom where that window is broken and no one's coming to attend to it right now, it's a pain, because that's maybe where you sit and mark. So no one understands the irritation. And so we have that lack of platform now. Because Paul had individual meetings with them too. Paul Stark, yeah. And so he didn't just isolate and only speak to me. He had an opportunity to listen to them. And so when he would meet with me and discuss things, he was speaking from a well-informed base. Because this is what other people are saying about you, or the ideas about how you're approaching things. And so his strategies on supporting me was well-informed. And that's what made the difference. The leader that I used to be was very clinical, overly focused, and driven by results. The leader that I have become after working through PFP and working with Paul Stark is one that is more understanding, compassionate, more loving also. And not that I am not focused on achieving those results, but as a byproduct, because of my change in my nature, of how I approach people, any challenge even, those just will sort themselves out, I have found. I don't believe I can lead without it. Now that I've grown to understand it and to make it my own and to love the new leader that I am, I would isolate myself again. I'd be cold and not knowing where our school is going to. I won't know what's happening in my school if I didn't connect with my colleagues. I would not be able to take the school forward if I didn't understand what was happening within their classrooms and connect with my teachers to know, so what are the resources that they require, what help do they need with the specialized needs of each child within their class. Because they don't have all the answers, neither do I. But if I know what's going on, and I've built up such a good relationship with you, I'm going to know how to support you, because I've got access to various resources at the district, and I'll know when I'm in a specific meeting, they've mentioned something about visual perception training. No, so-and-so said he or she needed training in that, and I'll be able to connect the dots so much easier. So for me, the relationship, building a good relationship with your staff is much more important than achieving the results. Once you've got that relationship with one of the teachers or your SNT members, your school goes forward on its own, automatically, because you then have a buy-in, you've got a shared values that's happening here between the two of us, as opposed to this is the way I am, this is who you are, and that's how we take the school forward. There's no symbiotic relationship between the two then. But once I get to connect with your heart and you connect with my heart, automatically we move forward in the same direction.